For most of human history, nobody knew who the father was. Not as a scandal, not as a mystery, simply as a fact of life that nobody had yet thought to question. The connection between sex and pregnancy, the biological reality that one specific act 9 months earlier produced one specific child, was not understood by early humans. It is not obvious. It took hundreds of thousands of years of human existence before anyone made the connection. And the moment someone finally did, the moment paternity became a concept that humans understood and began to care about, is the single most consequential cognitive event in the history of civilization. Everything changed. Marriage, property, inheritance, war, religion, law. The entire architecture of human society traces back to one realization made by one group of humans at some point in prehistory. We just do not know when. And the reason we do not know is extraordinary in itself. Start with what early human life actually looked like. Hunter-gatherer communities lived in small, mobile groups. Resources were shared. Children were raised collectively. Every adult in the group participated in caring for every child. The concept of one child belonging specifically to one man in a way that was different from how it belonged to the group, that concept did not exist. And there was no reason it should have. In a world where survival depended entirely on group cooperation, attaching children specifically to individual men served no obvious purpose. The group fed the children. The group protected the children. The group was the parent. Women understood maternity because they experienced it directly. The child came from their body. That connection was immediate, physical, and undeniable. But paternity? The invisible biological link between one specific act and one specific child months later required something that early humans did not yet have. Abstract causal thinking extended across time. The ability to connect a cause to an effect separated by 9 months requires a cognitive sophistication that did not emerge immediately. It requires memory, pattern recognition, and the ability to connect events across a span of time that early human minds were not yet equipped to bridge. And then, at some point, in some community somewhere in prehistory, someone made the connection. We cannot date this exactly, but we can trace its consequences, because the moment paternity became understood, the moment men realized that specific children could be specifically theirs, human behavior changed in ways that left permanent marks on the archaeological record. Suddenly, ownership of children mattered, and ownership of children meant ownership of the woman who produced them, and ownership of the woman meant controlling who she had access to, and controlling access meant marriage, and marriage meant property, and property meant inheritance, and inheritance meant war over who got what when someone died. The entire legal, social, and political architecture of human civilization, from the first property laws to the first inheritance disputes to the first wars fought over land and bloodline, traces back to the moment a man first understood that a child could be his, not the group's, his. That cognitive shift from collective parenthood to individual paternity is arguably the most consequential idea in human history. More consequential than fire, more consequential than farming. Because it did not just change how humans survived, it changed how humans organized themselves, related to each other, and fought over everything they built. And here is what makes this genuinely extraordinary. For the hundreds of thousands of years before that moment, women raised children in communities where paternity was irrelevant, where children belonged to everyone, where motherhood was the only parenthood that anyone could see or prove or understand. That world existed. For most of human history, it was the only world that existed. And then one idea ended it. Quietly, permanently, without anyone understanding what they had just changed. The moment someone asked, "Who is the father?" they were not asking a simple question. They were asking the question that built civilization. And everything that followed was the answer.